And welcome everybody to yet another Bangers and Classics podcast with me, James Ruppert, and him, David Malloy. And what's been occurring, David?
Oh, all sorts of stuff, James.
Yeah.
I saw that MX-5 again, the green NA model that's been lowered. It's now got some sort of weird writing on the side, but it's still winking. What else did I see this week? Oh, a TVRS. Now, it's not the one I've seen a couple of times lately. This one was purple or possibly magenta. I think it was a V6 version. Didn't see the back end, couldn't get a good look at it really, so I couldn't say if it was a V8, and certainly didn't hear it running. But yeah, it was nice to see. In terms of car spots, that's about it. Though, I have to say, I was chatting to a friend of mine yesterday who runs a garage about 50 miles away from where I now live, and he likes the podcast. He listens to the podcast.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, I mean, obviously we'll have to send him a get well soon card,
Yeah.
if he listens to this.
Well, he needs help, medical help.
Indeed, yes. His name's Jonathan Roberts, and this is saying hello to Jonathan. He runs a garage called J&J Roberts in Largs. The guys that work in it are good guys. Jonathan's a very good guy. It's the sort of place you go at Christmas, and you see people delivering, presents and cards, etc., which shows how popular they are with the clients, which means they do a good job. And I've always found Jonathan to be a really good guy. But he's not just into cars and podcasts. He likes watches.
Good for him.
Yes, he does. I think like you likes to get watches without spending a vast amount of money, not buying Rolexes or anything like that that's going to cost thousands. He's currently wearing, I'm told, De Tomaso watches.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, you're going to think these things are hugely expensive. But I looked it up, they're not. He did say that obviously his work, he works on cars a lot of time, but he keeps his watch on.
Yeah.
And if you can't really wear one with a dome face because he keeps breaking them. And he found, and this is what he wears, you'll love the name of this.
Yeah.
He wears the De Tomaso Business Punk watch.
Fantastic.
Yeah, good,
That's
isn't
the
it?
best name ever for a watch, actually.
I think it's got to be up there, yeah. So anyway, Jonathan, so you're welcome to come on the podcast sometime and tell us all about your watches. Moving on, I believe you were going to talk about a gentleman that we sadly lost in the last few days.
We did, yes. Everybody who listens to this podcast I would say, must have read one of his words either in a magazine or own one of his books, and that's Graham Robson. And he was about for a very long time in that business, writing about things and writing books. But he was also very, very significantly very involved in motorsport and the motor industry, sort of very different from the sort of current crop that you get of motoring hacks and writers, is that he was actually there. He was actually in, he was he was in rallies, he was running teams, and he was working, at the top tier of motorsport, and that's something that you just don't get anymore at all when it comes to motoring journalism. And the great thing about him, and what I thought about the other day, is that actually before the interweb, if I had to write something, I'd go and buy one of his books, because I could pretty much guarantee that for background, if I wanted to know the history of a vehicle, if I wanted to know the models involved, if I bought one of his books, it's all there. Whereas now we just go on the internet and download stuff and look at what 3 other people have written, and they're probably copied off him anyway. In the old days, you bought one of his books because you were guaranteed that you knew it was going to be correct. And you would, and plus you would learn something, and you'd have a very good addition to your library. And actually, in honour of you, David, today I've got his the 3rd generation Lotuses, Elite, Eclat, Esprit, Excel by Graham Robson.
Oh, that's good.
And it's a really good book. They were a collector guide series made by MRP. And they were a format type book, but it's extremely good in that you knew what you were getting, but there was just lots of information there, as well as a very good background story, and excellent shots of prototypes and all sorts of things. But because Graham Robson was a very he sort of cared about facts. He was very precise. And oddly enough, I did meet him quite a few years ago now, 1996. I wrote a feature for a car magazine called "Don't Forget Your Toothbrush," and it was about concours. And actually, I entered my old Golf as a concours. I spent a week. I spent a week cleaning it, and obviously, it was nowhere near good. I thought I made a pretty good job of it, but and it was. It was in South London. I can't remember. I think it was the Bromley Motoring Pageant, and it was
All
1996.
right.
And I went there, and he was one of the judges, and it was very nice because he knew who I was. And he said, "So you're here? Is this some sort of experiment?" He said to me, and I said, "No." I said, "I'm writing a story." But he said, "Oh, okay." But he was extremely nice to me, very very pleasant, and gave me terrible marks. But no, he didn't. I mean, he did. Yeah, he did the best. But I mean, the point of the feature that I wrote was called "Don't." It was called "Don't Forget Your Toothbrush." Was the fact that the people doing it were, you know, a bit mad, really, and they actually did have toothbrushes. And I must revive that feature because it was very very good. But the great bit of it was I met Graham Robson, who was one of us, but much much better. He knew absolutely everything about everything. It seemed. I know he had his specialist things like Ford, but really he was a fantastic all rounder, and it's a great loss. So we're very very sorry to his family, but he's left a fantastic legacy behind that we can still enjoy.
Indeed, absolutely, James. Of course, yes. He was a die-in of motoring writers,
Mm,
and there's no question about that. It's funny because when you were talking about the Concours there, I'm there
yeah,
about booms to these headphones today, and I thought you said Concorde. I thought,
yeah,
how the heck are you going to make a Volkswagen Golf look like Concorde?
yeah.
So I thought, where's he going with this one?
Get that droop snoot going
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's it. Get Forenza.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you were saying about obviously writers who were involved in motorsport who were
mm,
there. I mean, in the old days, you had Dennis Jenkinson, who was a world sidecar champion. He was a passenger.
yeah, mm,
And of course, he was the famous Milli Millia victory with Sterling Moss. Wrote for many years, very opinionated, but
yeah,
always good copy.
mm,
Really, always well worth reading. It didn't necessarily have to agree with him, but there was always a viewpoint that was always cogently expressed, which is
yeah,
great. You had Paul Frere, who raced at Le Mans,
yeah,
of course, and our own country, obviously in the UK, we had the likes of Roger Bell and Tony
mm,
John and Rex Greenslade, all of whom
mm.
drove in the British Touring Car Championship, which is I think it was probably called the British Saloon Car Championship in
Yeah, it
those
was,
days.
wasn't it? Yeah,
But they were there. They walked the walk,
yeah,
and that experience came across in the writing.
mm,
So
no,
yeah, it's sad when people like Graham Robson pass.
mm.
But as you say, he's left a great legacy, and I'm sure it's one that people who are interested in cars will treasure for a very long time to come. Going back to things perhaps more light-hearted, shall we say? I was playing an old song today, song by a Nick Straker band called "A Walk in the Park." You might remember that.
Uh, yeah, maybe.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
Well, that went down like a lead balloon. That one.
sorry about
Look out below.
that.
Yeah. Yes. Well, with your encyclopedic knowledge of music, Mr. Ruppert,
Yeah,
tricked onto that one straight away. Wasn't a big hit in Britain. It was a massive hit in the continent. Um, but the Nick Straker wasn't really called Nick Straker. His real name's Nick Bailey. And this is one of my quests.
mm.
I've always wondered, did he take the Straker part of his name from Ed Straker in UFO? I
I was
just
going to
don't.
say the only Straker that I know is Ed, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, apparently, no, there is apparently a Nick Straker who's a director of something or other. I looked it up today. I thought, it's not the same bloke. But as say Nick Straker, the Nick Straker who was in the band, he changed his name from Bailey to Straker professionally. But anyway, the point is, do you know, can anyone tell us, did Nick Bailey change his name to Nick Straker because of the UFO TV program? And it's a billion to one chance that Nick Straker listens to this podcast, and probably several billion to one, to be honest. But if you do, let us know, Nick. It would be great to hear, because my last quest with the Ibiza SXI Schmidt Hot billboard came a complete cropper. We get nowhere with that, and I'm still very much in the dark there, James.
No, absolutely. Are you interested at all, David, in what I've seen this week, or not? Should we just move on to
No,
something
let's
else?
let's go into that, James. Yeah.
Okay. Well, strangely enough, yeah, you're talking about a Di Tomaso watch, which is brilliant, and I'll have to go and get one now. I was out in mine yesterday. I was out in my little mini version, and I gave a huge thumbs up to a man in a 2CV, and he gave a huge thumbs up back. We were we were both united in our love of basic European motoring. So that was very, very nice. But actually, the best thing that I saw all week, I've actually seen the potential Bangers and Classics support vehicle
Oh.
for the adventures that we're planning,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a Unimog. It was not only that, it was a proper left-hand drive Unimog,
Blimey.
and it was converted. So it actually had a shed on the back, but it had quite a nicely finished shed. It
Now,
wasn't it, it wasn't one of
all
those
right.
ones that we see by the
Okay.
certain members of the hippie travelling
Yeah, I've got to
community.
jump in. I've got to jump in here a
Yeah,
second, James. Was it one shed, or could it possibly have belonged to Arthur Two Sheds Jackson?
well, I don't know. That's open for debate. But the other thing is that it actually had a canvas roof. So
Oh,
so the cab, it was actually a convertible cab, which was like even weirder, wasn't it? So you just think, goodness me, that's the oddest thing that I've ever seen ever.
yeah.
But he was filling up with fuel, and I couldn't speak to him because I was involved with something else at the time, with involving parcels. I was in a big parcel debate with my parcel shop, so I couldn't get out there quick enough. And by the time I did, he was disappearing into the distance, which was a
Ah,
shame. But yeah, I'm sure he would have joined us, on the mad adventures that we planned to have. But yeah, but the shed on the black, yeah, it actually had a ladder. There's a wooden ladder. There was obviously a stove on board because there was like a little chimney and everything. But it was extremely good. It was in sort of army olive drab green finish, so it really did look the part, which was good. And apart from that, I saw a GS scooter, a Vespa
hmm.
GS scooter in the week, a B-plated one from the second revival of mods, but that was in good condition. And finally, a very lovely four-door Morris Minor. With a very contented lady at the wheel, and it was in lovely condition, and it was very nice to see that. So yeah, I've seen a few things.
Jolly good. Funnily enough, James, I should
Mm.
have mentioned this. I saw
Yeah.
Unimog earlier in the week as well.
Oh, did
Can't
you?
remember what date we. Yeah, because I had to go along to local recycling centre, which is in the middle of the countryside, and I was a bit too early because previous appointment had been seeing a chap about a tow bar,
Mm.
and it had taken a lot less time than I thought it would. So got some time to kill because you have to make appointments now. You can't just turn up.
Mm.
So okay, fair enough. So drove on to the next village past it, and in the village was sitting a Unimog, quite
Yeah.
badly rusted Unimog.
Oh, really?
I like Unimog, so I really do.
Mm.
Looked very well used, but nonetheless it was there. I have to say I'm really quite a big fan of those, along with the stair push
Yeah.
Haflinger
Mm.
as well. They're also excellent.
They are.
Yeah, I mean we could spend all day talking about these things.
Well, we could, but yeah, I just think we should get one, David, and put the Bangers and Classics logo on the side, and people can point at us around the country as we go and do mad things.
Yeah, well, I have to get my trailer fixed first before we go anywhere.
Yeah, really. Oh, it's a
Oh
shame.
yeah, it's a long story, but we'll get there with it. We shall get there. But on that note, I think we'll take a very quick break. You're listening to Bangers and Classics, the motoring podcast that's got more rabbit than Watership Down. So we're back after that break, and we're going to kick on to the usual segment of the show that seldom divides, as it seems, and that is Banger or Classic. And this week we have a car that I suspect yet again we're probably going to agree about. James, it's the Volvo 480 ES.
Mm.
What's your thoughts on that, matey?
Well, as we always say about cars, I mean, if they've got pop-up headlamps, it's a shoe-in, isn't it?
It's a
Really,
classic. Well, let's just move on then.
it is. Yeah. Thank you and good night.
Exactly. Good
I
night.
think
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that one. But it does have an engine that I presume you would approve of, David, because it's slightly French, isn't it?
It's well. There's two engines. I think there was
Yeah.
three actually. You had the 1.7 liter, which was used in some versions, as I recall it. Well, it was used in the 5. It was
Mm.
also used in the 9 and 11. Some versions of it, the 1.7 litre. The 480 also had a turbocharged version of it, of
Yeah.
I think a Garrett turbo, which I don't believe Renault actually ever used. And I believe there was also late on a 2 litre Renault engine powered some versions, which I don't really remember, but I was looking this up, thought I better just check and make sure the engines were all Renault. So it was a 2 litre version, as I say. I don't recall it. To my memory, they were all 1.7s and 1.7
Yeah.
turbos. But yeah, they were all powered by French engines. Not much experience in those engines, I have to say. But they seemed pretty good, and they seemed to suit the car anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just one of those sort of left field Volvos, isn't it? That
Mm.
they came up with every decade or two.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so it's a bit like the P1800 in a
Mm.
way, but not quite as glam, I suppose.
Don't know. I mean, it's more like the P1800 ES version, the estate version, or
Yeah.
I suppose the shooting brake, or the
Mm.
the hatchback version, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of a spiritual successor to that, I think. And this is going to be sacrilege to some people, but I prefer it. The P1800. I'm not based on any objective criteria. It's just what I prefer. But of course, the 480 was built in the old DAF factory in the
Yeah,
Netherlands, whereas some of the P1800 bodies, the original P1800s, were built by Jensen, I believe.
they were, weren't they? And
Hmm.
they were very rusty and awful, I think. And I think that's why they stopped building them.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. I didn't want
Yeah.
to say that. I was trying to be nice.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's it. But a British company did have something to do with the 480. Do you know who that was?
No.
Oh, James, in your
Would be
home.
Lotus then, would
It's
it?
in
I don't
yes,
know.
exactly. It's close to your home county, mate.
Yeah. Oh, right. There you go.
Yeah. They had a hand in the suspension,
Yeah.
which meant that particularly for a Volvo, it was actually quite a good drive. So I think it was pretty good to look at, pretty good to
Mm.
drive, and as you say, it was something they did once every now and then. So it was sort of quite unexpected, I suppose, given what they're producing in most of the '70s to bring this out in the mid '80s. Sporty but practical, but there's a problem here, James, with the
Yeah.
480 ES.
Yeah.
What was it? What do you think it was?
I don't know. Well, rust was always one of the
No, no,
problems.
no, no.
But yeah,
Well,
no, you can tell me, David.
well,
I don't know.
okay. Well, one thing that held the 480 back, I think, from achieving greater success was a hot hatch,
Well, I suppose that's true.
because it was competing really for the same sort of market,
Mm.
and it was good. But you're up against, really the cream of hot hatches. The 80s was the time for the golden age for the hot hatch, and competition was fierce. So it meant that something like 9 years of production, they only built 76,000 or so 480s,
Mm.
which isn't a lot. And in my opinion, it was a better car than that. It should have sold better.
Absolutely. No,
Mm.
you're dead right. But yeah, it just wasn't a sexy car. I think that's
Yeah,
basically it, isn't it?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was quite a nice looking car. I don't know what held me back. I could have probably had one back in the day instead of a hot hatch I did have, but I never came close to buying one. I'm not to this day. I'm not really quite sure why that is. So I don't dislike them at all. I think they were pretty good, and they still do. And well, it's going to be. You know where this is going, don't you? It gets my vote as a classic.
Well, no, I do agree with you, David. It's another one of those cars that you do not see. You did see them for a bit. They
Mm,
were very rusty. They were a couple of £100, and you'd think, yeah, that will give you lots of grief. And then suddenly they're gone. And when a car goes from being a banger to a classic, it has been scientifically proven that there is a puff of smoke that occurs. It's a bit like when there's a new pope, and it's ordained as a classic. It doesn't happen to every car, of course, but
This is Bangers and Classics, the motoring podcast that's banned in 12 US states, 10 British towns, and the Inverdallac branch of the Women's Royal Institute. We're now going to nip behind the Iron Curtain and talk about a car from the Soviet Union that made something of an impact here, the Lada Niva. A very cheap and small 4x4. Turns out it was actually a pretty effective little tool. And my contention is, James, is I
yeah,
think it was a better buy than a Range Rover back in the day. What do you reckon?
yeah, it probably was because it wouldn't break down like the Range Rover would, really. So the Niva was a useful a useful thing back in the
Hmm.
day. It was very
Yeah.
very cheap, and yeah, when you look at it in real terms, you just think, well, why would I want to pay three times the price for a car which certainly isn't three times better?
Yeah, I mean it's arguable that the Range Rover wasn't really any better at all off road. The
No.
Niva was kind of held back by the tyres it came with.
Mm.
But if you put better tyres on it, better off road tyres, it was really very very good off road. It had good ground clearance, and as Ladas were, it was Spartan, but it was rugged. It was strongly built. It was heavy for its size,
Yeah.
And that's not just attributable to carrying the weight of the four-wheel drive system. It really didn't. It had nothing you didn't need, but it had all the things you did. And I think that's that kind of car. That's really what you're looking for. You don't want fripperies. You don't need velour trim. You don't need air conditioning. You don't need
No.
electric everything. You just need a car that will do the job. As you say, it cost about a third of the price of a Range Rover. If you wanted a car to be seen in, by the time that the Niva came out, as you headed certainly towards the 80s, a lot of Range Rovers became early versions of the Chelsea tractor, shall we say. They were bought by people who didn't really go off-road. They might use them the occasional bit of towing of a horse box or something, but you don't need a 4x4 to do that.
No.
They weren't really used off-road a great deal, shall we say. The Niva was more of a tool. It was something for people maybe who worked in forestry or whatever, farmers who wanted a cheap and effective tool to work off-road. And something that, if it broke down, you could probably hit it with a hammer and get going again. And I think it was excellent from that point of view, I really do. There were quite a few of them around at one time, but I checked, and as at the most recent figures that have been released, there were only 35 left on the road in the UK.
Well, strangely enough, David, I also thought, well, I'll go and buy one so that I can say, oh, look, I've got one parked outside, David. But I couldn't find any for sale. And
I found one.
oh,
for you.
You found one.
I found one. Yeah, I won't send you the link.
Oh, yeah.
I think you should go and buy it.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, that's the Bangers and Classic wagon.
Mm.
It's a sort of smaller version of a Unimog, really, isn't it?
I suppose it is, really, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of pocket size. Yeah. Okay, we can't fit a shed in the back. We could maybe tow one, though.
Yeah.
Two sheds.
Two sheds.
Yeah.
Operation Two
we could be
Sheds.
Arthur Jackson again.
Yeah.
We could do that. But yeah, I have to say the Niva for me was a really good car, and it proved that less is more in many respects.
But also the design is pretty good because they're doing the run-out models now, which are 17,000, I think. But it looks pretty much identical to the 70s one and doesn't look dated at all. It just looks like a square off-road vehicle.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. It's what the Suzuki Jimny should have been. But again, these cars are designed to have creature comforts and to closet their occupants, which of course is fine. But if you're out in the middle of the woods or the forest or out in the moors, what you really want is a car that's going to do the job, then get you home again for your large bowl of soup that's no doubt waiting for you when you get home.
Absolutely, yeah. I would actually say the only vehicle that comes close to that. I don't know many farmers at all who bought the Lada Niva, but I know quite a lot who bought Daihatsu 4-tracks because those are pretty much indestructible, and they were relatively cheap, and they will go on forever. But that's another one considering. We can do a Bangers and Classic on that one day.
Well, we can do, yes. We can have that instead of the Unimog.
Yeah.
Anyway, Lada Niva, if it was a banger or a classic, I'd say it was a classic, but it's not. We're not doing that this week. It's just giving it an honourable mention for all the good services given over the years.
Yeah.
I think. Anyway, moving on from that, I mean, you're saying the original version of it's still available. It's just been one out. Remakes. Now, you and I both like films, and we both occasionally watch the Critical Drinker on YouTube, who tends to be quite scathing about remakes, and I think with good reason. But he talks... Sorry?
No, I didn't want to interrupt you, David, but I heard some truly terrible news the other day. That they're... And I think remakes, as we will both agree, are a sign that there are no new ideas. And the terrible news that I heard is that they are remaking, or they may have remade it for all I know, Big Trouble in Little China, the greatest film ever made, as we know. So, why would you remake the best film ever? You just wouldn't. But as you say, people, if you like films, go and find The Critical Drinker because he's very funny, but he also makes extremely good points about film and filmmaking. And the point is, relating to cars, is that you don't need to remake something that's already been done, do you? Because it's been done.
Indeed. Anyway, looking at, for example, the Ford Puma. Great little coupe back in the 90s. And what have Ford done? They've not remade it, they've reused the name for a small crossover. Why couldn't they just give it a different name? It bears no relation to the original car. I mean, it may be a fine car in its own right, but it's going to suffer by comparison, I think.
I don't know whether people care too much about names like we do. The Puma Owners Club might care, but most people don't, and I don't think they would probably make the connection. And it's probably just Ford saving some money, just thinking, well, yeah, we've already got a name, so we'll just reuse it because they don't care and they don't like their customers. they
Okay,
just
people
they
should
just
care.
they do. Of course, people should
Should
care,
care.
but
Yeah, damn
but
it, should care.
but most people don't. It's just a car to them, and especially people buying a little tiny crossover. It's just something to get to the shops and back.
Mm.
Um, and it's very sad. The people who listen to this podcast care because we're caring, sharing people, but everyone else really doesn't. And in a way, that's what we have to face up to. We can get worked up about retro and remaking things, but actually, nobody really bothers about it at all. No one's going to get very upset about it, but we are. It'll probably stop us sleeping tonight. The fact
Absolutely, yeah.
that they remake things and give things new names and stuff. But for most people, they don't. It doesn't really matter too much.
No, but I mean, when the Bangers and
Mm.
Classics junta takes power,
Yeah.
we can change this.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's something that's on the agenda. It's written down here. Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah, very large print. Point number 6, that is.
Yeah.
We'll tell you what the first 5 are. But yeah, I mean, the Puma was just one example, though, James. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the Land Rover Defender,
Mm.
which has been remade effectively,
It has.
and the original, I think, was
Yeah.
the original is utilitarianism defined.
Yeah.
The new one, they've gone all Vegas on it.
Yeah.
Why? It's not for that. It's the people who want a Defender don't need that sort of glitz. They just want a car that does the job. You
Yeah.
don't, you've got other Land Rovers who've got all the bells and whistles.
Mm.
Of people who really just want to be seen in them. Who may very occasionally, very very occasionally, go down a green lane. Maybe once in a lifetime. But for people like like yourself, James,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and that chap we've talked about before, Simon, a bloke in the woods on YouTube. I want to talk about him in a minute, actually. But people like you that've got Land Rovers, they use their cars as they were designed. The working vehicles.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you don't want too much in the way of electronics. You don't want stuff that's going to fail and break down and cause you problems.
No, that's right. But David, all the car magazines, with no exceptions whatsoever, have all gone, oh, isn't this great? I don't know if anybody's noticed that. There was no, because I suppose they want the advertising and we all understand that. But as you say, it is a bit of critical thinking applied to what a vehicle should be. As you say, they already have things in the lineup that do that job, that will do the school run. You don't need another.
Yeah.
So it's completely pointless.
Yeah. If you view it as a vehicle that's used for the school one, Chelsea tractor, whatever, then yeah, I'm sure it is very good. But that's not the point of it. That's
No.
the point of the Defender, and obviously the Series 1, etc., 2, 3 before it was people working a working vehicle. And it's disregarded that point, I think. However, it's a decision that Land Rover have made, and they have to live with the consequences, be that good or bad. I mean, it may be a roaring success, James. Maybe I've got this completely wrong.
Well, it may explain why we actually don't run car companies, David, because we'd be terrible at it.
Oh, I don't know so much.
We'd only make cars that would appeal to the Bangers and Classics hardcore.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we wouldn't sell any because I don't know whether any of our hardcore fans can afford anything but a banger or a classic.
Well, some classics are pretty blooming expensive.
They are actually, aren't they?
That's a problem. Yeah, but we have to be positive about this in one sense. There are a couple of good remakes, if you like. There's the Fiat 500, which is it's a supersized version, but it's quite a funky little car, so we'll give it a pass. And of course, the Alpine A110.
Yeah,
it's not the original. It can't be the original. It's not possible. Things have changed. Legislation's changed. Cars are bigger, heavier. We know that. But as a modern sports car, it's very good, and it doesn't do disservice to the name it's been given. That's how I would see it. I think it's worthy of that name. And if it's that, then no one should have a problem with it. As long as it lives up to the standards set by its predecessor, then that's what really, as car fans, we're looking for, isn't it?
It is, yeah, because in many ways the ultimate retro car is a Porsche 911, which seems to have got fatter and bigger, and maybe it's faster, but I don't think it's any more appealing or interesting
Uh,
than it was, 20, 30 years ago.
it's just a squash beetle anyway,
It
really,
is,
isn't
yeah, of course it is, yeah,
it?
yeah.
Just being controversial again. Yeah, a mate of mine's got one. He absolutely loves it. Well, which is great. I'd rather have a 944. Just kind of sticking it out there. A nice guard red 944. That'd do me. Not a 911. Anyway, we'll go on to one more. Oh, before we go on to the next thing, I've mentioned Simon the Bloke in the Woods. We mentioned him
Mm,
before in the
yeah,
podcast. He's a YouTuber who likes to go out in the woods, likes to go canoeing, and a very engaging chap. Lives down your part of the world, James,
yeah.
in
All the best
Norfolkshire.
people do, David.
Yeah, that's why I'm not allowed there.
No, absolutely not.
Exactly, yeah. But he and some of his chums are coming to Scotland. I think on the weekend they're going to do a canoe trip up the Great Glen from Fort William to Inverness. They're doing the trip to raise money for the Alzheimer's Society, which is, of course, an excellent cause. And as of some days ago, they'd raised over £7,000 already. We'll put the link to the Just Giving page on the Bangers and Classics Twitter feed. And we'd obviously ask that if you can spare a few quid, then please do so. It's an excellent and very, very worthy cause indeed. So, moving to the last part of this week's podcast, I briefly want to mention a company called Crayford Engineering. They produced versions of cars, principally convertibles and state cars,
Mm,
that the original manufacturers didn't. So you get all sorts of things they would do, like a hatchback Princess, a convertible Ford Cortina, that kind of thing. They also did a convertible Fiesta Mark One as well. So they did all sorts of weird and wonderful things over the years. And sadly, it seems that they're no more. I can't find any record of them having built a car for about 20 years. Do you know anything about them, James?
no, not really. I mean, I'm interested in them because they did minis,
Hmm.
and they very famously did the Heinz. Were they
Oh,
Hornets?
yeah.
Yeah, they did. They did those. They did like promotional cars and things like that. So,
It was the
it,
57 of them they did.
yeah, they may well have done 57 of
I
them.
think they did, actually.
Yeah, I think they did. But yeah, I was always very, very interested. And as you say, what they did is they filled in the niche that the manufacturer didn't do. And often there was a demand for it, and they made it pay. And it was, as you say, it was a clever little engineering firm who could do something that the big boys couldn't. So,
Yeah.
but as you say, I haven't heard anything about them for a very long time. So
No.
they have sadly gone the way of many other companies.
Yeah, like tour cars as well from Devon. They
Mm,
used to do. They did the Princess as well. They did a hatchback version of the Princess,
mm,
and I think one of them, I can't remember which one it was now, did TR7 Tracer, which was a TR7 shooting brake. But you mentioned the Crayford and the Wolseley Hornets, the Heinz 57.
yeah.
I've just found something here.
Mm.
They made 57 of them
Yeah,
as prizes for a giveaway for a
yeah,
competition by Heinz, and they were convertible versions.
mm,
This was in
yeah.
1966, which was, I believe, a significant year for some other reasons, but that obviously escapes my mind totally, James.
Of course, it would do, David.
Yeah, it has to. Yeah, that's it.
Mm.
Yes, something about people kicking a ball around the field is something that Scots people aren't very good at. Let's be honest. But yeah, they gave away 57. This was in the days, of course, when companies gave away things
Mm.
and competitions, and you didn't have to spend £3 or £4 entering them. Because, of
No,
course, that's a scam. Because what
yeah,
they do is they're not giving you anything away. You're paying X pounds to enter, and they're basing it on X thousand people entering, and they make more than enough to run the competition and pay for the prize and get publicity out of it. It's very clever marketing, but in the old days, they didn't do that. They just gave stuff away.
yeah. But isn't that what bangers and classics do, David? Don't they just give things away
Oh,
out of the goodness of their hearts?
we're mad though.
Well,
You've got to remember that, James. we're slightly eccentric, old son.
yeah.
We have our roots in the days of the Heinz competition in Crayford and all sorts of good things that sadly seem to have passed on. But not if we can help it.
No,
No, not if we can help it. Well, when we take power, I'm starting to sound like Wolfie Smith here.
yeah,
Come the revolution.
yeah.
Yes. So, on that note, I'd like to say thank you for listening to this week's podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it and hope you listening next week. And I'll leave it to Mr. Ruppert to sign us out in his customary fashion.
All right. Well, I've got to think of somebody to drive off into the distance with, and I can
Well,
only
but what I can think of somebody. What
Can
about
you?
that?
Go on then.
Yeah, that contented woman in the Morris 1000.
Yeah, she did look all right, actually, but there you go.
Well, there you go. She was very.
Yeah.
She'll be even more contented looking if you're sitting beside her.
Well, there you go. But I'm a happily married man, David. That's the main thing.
He adds quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in case she listens to this.
Your wife's far too sensible to listen to this nonsense. Anyway, on that note,
Yeah.
Vamos. Let's go.
Yeah. Cheerio, everybody. Thank you for turning up.